everybody, it's Safi and Marco, dish out on the movies, but today we're not doing a movie. We are talking about the latest Goosebumps book, which really came out in early March.
Yeah, now this is really screwed up because usually we're on the ball with these Goosebumps releases, but I don't know, it just came and went, and I was focusing on something else at the time, but it was like, I should have just put it in my calendar, but I didn't. And so yesterday I was thinking, like, oh yeah, there's a Goosebumps book that comes out in the spring, and then boom, like, oh yeah, it already came out, and it's the one that I wasn't looking forward to, and Safi wasn't either, and then the book turned out to be as bad as we thought it would be. Or worse.
So anyway, the name of the book, and if I say it, I would love to hear what you immediately think of when you hear this title. Say my name, say my name.
Jackass the movie.
Let me know, because when I heard it, and that's not what the book is referring to, but when you hear that, it's a famous, iconic line that comes from something that adults watched, and I don't know. To me, that's already signals something not good. And it's not just say my name. It's say my name, say my name.
That's because there's already been a book and or a movie or something where it was called Say My Name. In fact, there's a song or music album too, Say My Name. So I guess, I don't know, but it was a very strange, because in Breaking Bad, he says it twice, exactly. He says, say my name, say my name. So twice. And it's like, to make the distinction between the book and the show, it would have been probably better for just to say it once. Just to say my name. Just once.
And remember, the books that we do, for the most part, we're listening to them.
Unfortunately.
They're audiobooks.
Or fortunate.
So because I have a library membership, and it's called Hoopla. And so I can watch movies and listen to music. I can even play games. I haven't even done that yet.
Safi's one of the few people who still goes to the library, but she goes to the library at home.
Yeah, but they used to buy a lot of books, and it helps me not to buy them, to spend the money, because I can do it for free. And so we listen to these books on the Hoopla app, and you may have heard about that app from your own local library, but you have to have a library card, and you hook up through Hoopla on that.
Anyways, back to the book.
To the book.
I think the first red flag about this book was the cover, because from the cover, it's kind of hard to tell what the story's going to be about. It kind of indicates that it's going to be a fish story. And you know what I think of when I think of a fish story? I think of, not of Deep Trouble, but I think of the ending of the Go Eat Worms episode. Remember?
No, I don't, but...
It's where, at the end of the episode, they're fishing, and then, I can't remember, the kid either becomes a fish, or he becomes a worm that a fish tries to eat or something, and so the other kid is fishing with him as the bait, or he catches his friend as the fish. So that's the ending. So that's what I thought of. I thought of the Go Eat Worms TV episode from the 90s. The good version, not the shitty new one. But no, the book, the cover was already kind of okay, what's this going to be about? And I think that most of the covers for Goosebumps books, they're very, very specific and focused. Like when you think of classic ones, you think of Horror at Camp Jelly Jam. That guy who did the covers for the old ones, he was like, okay, let's have a character, a camp counselor character, a really creepy one, and that is an iconic picture that he did there. And you think of another one like stay out of the basement, and you see the basement door with the hand reaching out of the basement. But for say my name, you see this stupid fish that's in the story for like 2 seconds, and then you see 2 little boys in the background, this kind of swampy area. It's just a terrible, terrible cover.
Well, they're in black, like shadows.
Silhouettes.
Way far away.
Silhouettes.
And then the fish is like front and center.
Yeah.
And colorful. And big looking. In the book, it is not big. Not like that.
Well, it is close to the camera, so that's why I think. Because, like, you couldn't have a small... In fact, I would be curious to look up what the other covers looked like. Because, remember, every time they do a book like this, they always have, like, alternate covers.
Oh.
So I should go ahead and look that up while you're starting to talk about this really good book.
He's lying, too.
The bookworm likes it, too. Remember the bookworm, Safi, from the first House of Shivers book?
When I started to listen to it, I had a bad feeling. I felt like it was a junk book. And when I say that, it's like there's just all this crap and it's been shoved into the space and tried to be part of a story. Because there was just stuff coming in right and left. And I don't even remember the boys' names. They're like friends.
I don't either.
And I guess they swim, and one of them has a creek out in his backyard, which I grew up when I was a kid, their age, I suppose, and there was a creek in the back. And they go swimming all the time in it, and it's dirty. And it was swollen, like we just had here. Personally, we had a lot of rain, and we had raging creek beds and rivers. And they're going to go swimming in a swollen, flooded creek. And the father said, no, don't do that. I don't think that's a good idea. And they're like, yeah, that's okay. It's usually just like not very deep. But just the fact that it's flooded means it is deep.
I can't find any alternate covers, but I did find this very funny guy. He did a video review, and the cover of the video is him face palming himself with the book cover and saying, "I'm done." So that should show you guys. People probably did not like this book in general. Safi, you want to go take a time out? Okay, I didn't hear it. What did you say, Safi? What?
Shh.
What?
Shh.
Say that again? Anyways, back to the book. This is one of those books, and because I have a very short attention span when it comes to books, when it comes to audiobooks especially. Like, if it doesn't hook me, then it's really hard for me to kind of be engaged with the story, because it's, I don't know, I just don't know, but like, it's never a good sign when I'm really zoned out. And I was zoned out almost this whole book. Like, I just couldn't care less about what was going on. I basically didn't really get anything that would happen in the book other than, like, there's just a bunch of random shit happening. Apparently, like, a video game has come to life, and it's like, Safi pointed out, and I agreed, that this book it just felt like it was taken from that Escape from Shutter Mansion Slappy World book, which was actually much better, even though it was still bad. It had a lot better writing, it had a better story, it had a lot better ideas.
And there were scary things in it.
Well,
I thought.
Scary for you, because you're a wimp.
Well, no, you remember the girl got her feet stuck on the floor?
Oh no, my feet are stuck.
Them.
Oh no, here, Safi, here. I got your foot, Safi. You can't get out. You can't escape.
There's nothing scary. I don't think there's
You can't get your foot out.
Okay.
Even if you tried.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, something was after them, if you remember. But anyway, I don't think
Something was after
that,
them.
other than
What the fuck?
they have this thing about finding different animals in the river and on the bank.
Well, yeah, it all starts off with they find a fish and it says, "Say my name, say my name." This is where the book starts to get really stupid. They have this flashback, like just a random flashback that never comes up in the story again. There's no importance whatsoever to this flashback other than a reference to the word throwing, as in throwing your voice. They talk about how this guy... The fuck?
Sorry.
The fuck?
Blowing my nose so it won't go down
They-
my throat and make me cough.
God, this is bizarre. This guy came to the kids' school and he brought a ventriloquist dummy and he teaches the kids how to throw their voices. So number one, it feels like they're just throwing in like a dummy character for some reason. Like the dummy never comes into the story again. I don't know what that was for.
Nope.
Number two, after that, they clarify that, like, oh, maybe the reason for this flashback is because the main character suspects that the other kid was throwing his voice into the fish. It's just really bizarre. It's like, you could have just said, I guess show not tell, but he's still telling because it's a book. You know, but
Right.
he could have just said, hey, wait a minute, we learned this last week at that demonstration. You know, that guy taught us how to throw our voices, and you're doing that right now, aren't you? Or something to that effect. You didn't need to go into this whole big flashback, and it was almost like kind of like another thing of like, let's throw in something else into the story. A dummy character
Like
who...
Slappy.
What was the dummy's name even? Like,
I
I don't
guess
even...
for somebody.
It was, I think the pull to it was that he looked exactly like the ventriloquist guy.
Yes, he did.
Like they were twins or something, but it's
Yeah.
like, that never came up again. And it's like, what would have been cool is if at the end of the story they revealed the next book is going to be all about that dummy. And it's going to be... But it wouldn't really be cool because it's like, we've had enough Slappy stories for a while. At least for another year, you know? But, like, yeah, that whole part was random. But after that, it's just like random stuff happens. Like, and then Safi should talk about they switch narratives too. Like, they switch characters like a video game. That's probably what his idea was. Let's make this like a video game where you can switch characters, you know?
I don't know. What happens is, you have these two boys, they're friends. One wants to go swimming, but the other one wants to stay home and work on his video games. Because he's like a genius. And he makes his own video games. He develops the story. He knows how to do the computer write-up programming for it. He's real smart, and he wants to stay there, and he goes on and on about it. And you're thinking like, well, it's just he wants to stay in, the other guy wants to go out, but they end up both going out. But anyway, then when all these things start happening, like they see a fish and they see pigs and something else, and the kid never says, the kid who's smart and writes video games, he never says at all until much later that this is all part of his game and it's all coming true.
Hey, this reminds me of something that I've seen before. The video game that I like to work on all the time. Hey!
And you're like, and even the other characters like, what the hell? Why didn't you ever say anything? I mean, that to me, now that is actually a truism and something that would really happen. And I'm thinking the same thing. And I'm sure Marco was too.
What?
And why didn't the guy say something?
Oh, I told
like
you,
right away.
I barely comprehended what happened in the book.
I mean,
I barely
if you're seeing a
comprehended
fish
anything.
and all the things that are happening, they brought the kid who likes to go outside and swim. He brought his dog with him. The dog gets carried down the river because it's a creek, and it's very high. And anybody ever done floating in a canoe in kind of a real high river? Well, it's dangerous.
This is what I'd like to talk about. I'd like to talk about how I am sure of this in all the other House of Shivers books so far. And see, this is why I had a problem with House of Shivers. It's because, what does House of Shivers mean? Yeah. So far, it's meant that in these books, they'll have these moments of maturity. They'll have really, really intense moments that kind of push the boundaries for kids' books. This book didn't have a single one. You know, you think about, like, last one, they had the mummy talking about the whole mummification process, I think, stuff like that. The book before that, The Goblin Monday, there was that really cool scene where the guy picks up a bird while it's still alive and he eats it. That was really gross and really boundary pushing. This book didn't have a single moment like that. And so it's like, okay, if you're not even going to be consistent with what these books are supposed to have in them, then why even do them at all? Because you should follow through on what you set up to do, or what you set out to do, and what you promised to do. And to me, there's no follow through with this book. This book is almost like, I'm just surprised it took 6 months to make this book. Like, it feels like it was written in like a day. Like, it's like a creative writing project. Like, we had this one thing, and Safi probably didn't have it because she went to a hillbilly school.
Yeah, I did.
But
sorry, anybody from my school who listens to this. Sorry, but it's true.
They had this exercise where, you know, one kid starts off a story, or every kid starts off a story, and then they pass it to the right to another kid, and that person writes a little bit, and then they pass it along again. And a lot of the times, just random stuff happens in these stories, like, it just, all these random twists and turns and things, and that's what this story feels like. It feels like a creative writing exercise, where really it was just to exercise the writing muscles, which are the fingers and the brain.
We did do that in my writing group that I had years ago.
You did?
Yep. Sure
did. Your writing group.
Did it a few times.
Safi had a writing group where it was secretly a terrorist organization.
But don't do that. That's bullshit. we wrote for the local newspaper, and we each had a different story to do every week in terms of people who were singers, actors, artists, etc. And so besides getting assigned to do these articles, we also did writing exercises to improve our writing. So anyway,
they also discussed how to make explosives.
No, we didn't.
But she actually ran this writing group in
did.
the back of this coffee store. It was like a coffee store, and they had these giant chocolate chip cookies that were like the greatest chocolate chip cookies ever. And they ended up closing down, and now they have the Cherry House Cafe there, which Safi...
Actually, it's a nice little cafe.
Safi frequently calls it the Blueberry Cafe.
I know it.
Because that is from Andy Griffith, though. In Andy Griffith's show, they do have the Bluebird Diner, or the Blueberry Diner, or something. So
I think it's Bluebird, yeah.
I think Bluebird.
You're right.
Bluebird Diner, yeah. But, Safi did that. But anyway, back to the shitty book. Back to the shitty book that we hated reading, and that I don't even know how I got through it. I think I looked at my phone the whole time and played games and stuff, immature stuff like that.
Well, I paid bills, so, and also I played a game, but...
Probably smelled my fingers, you know. I mean, even that's more entertaining than reading a book like this, you know. It's just so bad. It's so bad.
But anyway, he did something creative, which I've never seen before.
And that is...
in his writing.
And that is write a piece of shit.
He had 2 more characters come into the story, and then when the 2 boys left, because they'd been swimming all afternoon. They couldn't find the dog, so these two girls, the first people were two boys, okay? They were charged with finding his dog, because they knew the dog. And the dog they couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it drowned, no. I'm just saying it was in the water, it went out of the water, and then they kind of lost track of it. And so the boys went home, and that was a whole big thing, but I won't talk about that now. But then they focused on just the two girls. And then what they experienced, they were making a cabin, I don't know, like on YouTube, people put these shelters together, and they'll go through a snowstorm or something, and they'll film the whole thing, and they have wood burning, and they cook stuff in the shelter, and they have a dog with them. Well, it wasn't like that. You know, there was no snowstorm, and it wasn't cold out, but they were building cabin. They were doing it for extra credit at school.
They were building Kevin?
A cabin.
Kevin?
A cabin!
Kevin McAllister from Home Alone?
Oh, God. Anyway, they then they decided, why are we building this? We don't need the extra credit. We're already making good grades. So they decide not to. So this is all discussed. And they look for the dog, and they don't find the dog. And then they catch up with the boys, and the stories come back together again.
Yeah, well, I think, as I said before, that's something that would happen in a video game. Where, you jump to other characters, and, maybe the stories connect at one point, or maybe they don't, and, so maybe that was his idea, but I don't think it came off very well. I thought it was kind of random. I thought it was like another thing of like, oh, what's this story about now? Like, who are the characters? Like, what is this about? Like, I don't even care anymore.
And after, I think, oh yeah, how did this happen? The girls grew their hands turned into hooves.
Well, I remember how that happened. There was this guy, I can't remember who it was, but at a certain point, he just kept on adding stuff to the video game or changing things.
That's the brother.
Well, he was like, I just thought it would be funny to put hooves on the characters or something like that. It was just like thrown in there.
Okay.
Like just randomly.
This was after the younger brother, who's this other, like all these girls and that other boy, they know him. They're all in class together. And his older brother, well, this is after he told them that he had written this story, that it was a computer game. And everything in the computer game was all true. It was all happening. And so this brother comes in. He's been playing ball or something. I don't know what he was doing. And he came in and said, I went into the game, I changed a few things because I thought it was boring.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, and the kid's having a fit. And all of a sudden, somehow, the girl's hands turned into hooves. Horses' hooves, or whatever, or cow hooves. I don't know, and so there was all this to do about that. But see, just telling this, it sounds ridiculous and stupid. I don't even want to go on, and then they come to this point where, well, the boys go home to the swimming guy's house, but it's not theirs anymore. It's somebody else's, because they're not real people. They're only characters that this boy made up for the game.
Yeah, that's the big twist of the story, which I thought was kind of gay. It kind of reminded me of that stupid Shocker on Shock Street episode where it's like, oh yeah, it turns out the two main kids are actually robots. I always hate like twists like that because it just makes you feel like, what was the point? Why would I care about these characters now? Why would I care about this story? Why would I ever read this again? These aren't real people. And it wasn't ever acknowledged, so it's like this twist thing, and so it's like, why would I care about these fake characters? Like, I don't know, like, and then, They actually ripped off Terror Tower, too. They have this part where one of the boys says, I have an idea. What if we say our names out loud and that'll get us out of the game somehow? And then he's about to say his name, and then he tells the other kid to say his first, and they both don't remember their names. And does that sound familiar, Safi?
Yep.
Terror Tower.
Terror Tower.
Wait a second. What are our parents' names? Oh, they knew their names. They knew their own names, Sue and Eddie, but they didn't know their parents' names. They didn't know the room number. And so that just reminded me of Terror Tower. And, Terror Tower had a much better reason and had a much better... I mean, it was very creepy, too, because it ended up being that, their parents are actually dead. They were executed by the
monarchy.
The bad guy. And so that was so much better. And this is not Terror Tower. This is Shit Tower. This is there's no tower. It's just a tower of trash. But I can't even remember how the story ends. Oh yeah, they reboot. They're like, what would be a really good idea to get out of a video game? What if we rebooted the game?
They found different things, saying the names, and they were on level 2. Then they ended up on level 2, and the brother, that older brother, was no longer in the game. He was gone. And so then they did this thing with reboot. It's so stupid.
They just say reboot, and then all of a sudden, this is where R.L. Stine was trying to be cutesy. This is where he was trying to be cutesy, because after all is said and done, he says, this is now chapter 1. And then they're back at the beginning. It's like, fuck you. Like, that's like a a very self-serving, like a cutesy type of thing. Like, fuck you.
I don't like that. I just, the more I think about it, it's just a terrible book. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's really bad.
What he needs to do, I mean, just think about, if any of you ever read some of these original Goosebumps books, that were done in the 90s. I mean, just read the Terror Tower book. Just read it. Watch the episode. It's about 10,000 times better than this. Why? Why is it better? It's more focused. It's a solid story. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end.
I think that the big thing that he needs to focus on is making these books horror books again, because they do not feel like Goosebumps books anymore, because the old books, they were very classic. They had a classic feel. They had a suspenseful feel sometimes. They'd have suspense stuff happen in them. And they had a lot of classic hallmarks of horror stories and horror, horror characters and everything. And so I think that he needs to go back to making this a horror series. Tell the sensitivity readers to go shove their pens up their you-know-whats. And say,
if you don't want to read it, don't read it.
We're gonna no, Safi. Book companies now have something called a sensitivity reader, and they read stories to make sure that it won't offend anyone. Very subjective thing of something that offends you. That they read books to make sure they won't offend anyone, and he needs to tell them to go fuck themselves and to go back to the horror, because I would say this, I can't imagine, and this is bad because this shows that Goosebumps has gone downhill. Someone new needs to come in and fix the brand at this point. The whole brand, the show, the movies, the books, everything needs to be fixed. Everything needs to be revamped. But a big thing, and this is probably going to be a wake-up call for a lot of Goosebumps fanboys, is that I couldn't imagine a single Goosebumps book from the original 62, or I think it's 62. I can't imagine a single Goosebumps book from that series being made today. A single one. And I mean, not by made today as in it wouldn't be allowed to be made. I'm talking about R.L. Stine wouldn't write it. He wouldn't write a story like Welcome to Dead House Today that was written how it was written. He wouldn't write a story like The Haunted Mask Today. Because he's babied down the series. They've really babied down Goosebumps. They babied it down. They've added a lot of childishness and a lot of cartoonish humor and just turned it into something that is more of like a joke than a horror series. So I would give this book a D-, but then after this review I give it an F because I just can't think of a single good thing about it.
No. And I gave it an F too. I mean, we just had all this rain. This is just a basic thing. We had days and days of rain, day and night. We went door dashing. We're door dashers now. And we're driving by these the rivers and creeks. They're about ready to go over the roads. And you don't want to go swimming in those. But between all the debris and who knows what else. And it's dangerous. And that's the whole... They start off with this thing with the video games and the characters. And say my name, say my name. I don't like that title at all. There's so many things I don't like about it. And I thought when I started to read it, well, the title I didn't like because what it reminds me of, because I'm an adult, is Breaking Bad. I can't help it. I can see Walter standing there with his hat going, say my name. And then I thought of it as like a junk book, like somebody making a scrapbook of I knew somebody in college, and they did this. They would do every day. They would work on it. It was like their journal, and they would glue stuff in it, and they would they had colored gel, like marker pens, which they didn't even have those back then. But
Safi's nickname.
Anyway,
Safi's nickname in high school was Junk Book.
Marco, this is college.
Safi's nickname in high school was Junk Book.
And this girl who did this was Connie. Now, if you go on YouTube, you can find these professionally done books. But my point is that it felt like junk to me. Like somebody just thrown all this stuff in a pot and mixed it up. And then they threw it on the page and it all set into whatever the story it was going to be. And I was thinking, gee, I wonder how long it took him to write this.
I don't know.
I think maybe I should sit down and write a book
and I
like
think,
that.
Well, you can't,
like
Safi.
48 hours.
You just can't
just
handle
write,
it.
See how many words I can spit out in 48 hours.
Well,
and see what happens. I don't know if I could do that, but I thought about it because I thought, how long did it take him to write this book?
Well, I think that the creepy thing is that the book was edited, because you can't release a book with a publishing company without having it edited.
Right.
So this book was not only written, it was edited. Somebody looked through it and they said, you better make these changes. And it's funny too, because I think something I forgot to mention, this is something that I noticed that Safi probably isn't smart enough to pick up on.
I'm going to kill him by the end of the day.
is that it kind of felt like a trendy book, like, video game movies and shows are really popular now. Let's do another video game book. Maybe that's what happened, and maybe R.L. Stine didn't even want to write it. Maybe it was the publishing company's idea. They said,
it could be.
Because there was a Minecraft reference in this game, in this movie, the Minecraft movie just came out, and it really kind of felt to me like a trend book, because they had another reference, which is an AI reference. I think that's really depressing. I just think it's very gross that we've gotten to the point where in a Goosebumps book they reference the use of AI.
And I'm going to tell you personally, I despise AI. Because I've seen the pictures it produces. There's all kinds of mistakes in them. Obvious mistakes. I've seen the writing. All kinds of problems with it. And people should never, ever depend on AI. And there's some things in the government they're using AI for, and I would never rely on AI for anything, ever. It's kind of like a little cheating shortcut, but it's like the operative word here is cheating.
I just got a really good idea, but I don't want to give it to the people who make the show.
But it's,
because
you think about it doesn't work.
You think about Goosebumps. You think about The Perfect School. Well, how do you do a sequel to The Perfect School? Well, one thing that you could do is you could have a new Perfect School, and what would be really creepy and interesting about this is that the whole school would be run by AI.
Well,
and
that
so
would be something.
And so you would have AI teachers, which they've actually talked about, and there are certain people that Safi knows that think it's a really good idea. A certain specific person who is on the spectrum, and Mike Myers plays him on SNL. He says he says it's a really good idea because children can have their own specialized teacher, and they don't have to worry about being in a class with other kids and having to
socially interact with other people.
Yeah, and so what could be really creepy about this is it could basically be like a prison where, everything in the school is AI. Like you have AI food, like the people who make the food, it's all AI, and they just generate this slop. You'd have AI teachers, and it would be like each kid is trapped in like a cell with this AI teacher that never leaves or something, and that could be a really good book. And so it's just too bad that like R.L. Stine just can't come up with an idea like that anymore, because he's just, I think he's kind of washed out. I think he needs to give it up and, I don't know, go to Thailand and eat noodles on a beach.
Stupid.
Right, Savi? What do you think of that, Savi? Wouldn't that be creepy? That'd be a real.
Yeah, that would be good.
That'd be a good sequel to The Perfect School, too.
You're talking about a fleshed out book with ideas. How did they get into that? You could make it about this billionaire and his crazy ideas, and then you have this happen. And this is the first brand new AI school in the country, and the idea was brought up by you know who, and then it really turns into be a horror story. And how does it end? Something terrible happens or scary, and all but the kids make it and get out of there, and then they all want to go to a regular school or something.
It could be really creepy.
Whether it's a private regular school or a public regular school. So anyway,
I'm really upset though that I gave up that idea, because I know that the people who write the show, they watch my videos. And you remember, Safi, they stole that whole idea I had with the cuckoo clock of doom, and they adapted it and ruined it.
It's just AI. I hate it. And I have seen enough BS. And I just can't believe it. I don't even think about
AI teachers.
AI teachers. So
future.
that would mean you wouldn't have to worry about paying anybody to teach your children. So they could make cuts.
Putting teachers out of jobs.
Yeah, because that's what they want to do. Cut the Department of Education. So let's just have AI teachers, and then we don't have to pay to feed them anymore anything good, because we'll just make up AI food. So that'll be their lunch. An AI lunch.
No, that doesn't exist. But what I mean is, like, the AI would program and say, okay, kids only need this little amount of food. We don't have to give them a full meal. We can just feed them this bare minimum of stuff, and it's all crap, and it's all processed. And that could also be really creepy. The whole thing could be really creepy.
I know, and it's influenced by this story.
No,
just the whole appearance of this AI BS.
It's influenced by The Perfect School, so it would be a sequel.
That too.
It would be a sequel to The Perfect School, called The Perfect.
You'd have to think of something very
another perfect school.
Yeah, another perfect school. But and you wonder, well, what are they talking about now? They're completely off topic.
That's because this book sucks.
This book is just terrible. I'm sorry. I don't want to be. I've met R.L. Stine. I don't want to insult him that
Well,
way.
if I met him, I would tell him this book sucks.
But listen, when somebody writes, when somebody reads, if they continue to read it and they can't put the book down or they can't put the story down, it's the same as writing it. When you're writing a story, was this a story that R.L. Stine wrote and he really enjoyed it? You know, like the woman who wrote Harry Potter, the Harry Potter books. She was enjoying herself writing about the different components of the Harry Potter series, the different houses, the different characters, the Quidditch, all that stuff. She liked it. She enjoyed it. So if you write something and you enjoy what you're writing, chances are that the people who read it will enjoy reading it too. But if you're writing something and you don't really like it, that is bad, because probably the people who read it, they won't like it either. So it's trash. Okay? So anyway, I'm going to have to give it a bad grade too. I met him, so I'll just give it a D-. But that's being generous, because it's a terrible book.
I think what would be really interesting,
and I read all the time,
if they did kind of like an Under the Dome situation, where they took like a random school and they said, we're going to run this experimental program in the school called the Perfect School, and we're going to use AI with everything, and we're going to rebuild the school, or we're going to take the kids to a new school, because it would be interesting. How would AI teachers and instructors and staff, how would they deal with normal teenage problems like cliques and bullies, and how would they deal with all that stuff? And it would be so much more interesting than the first Perfect School, where they already have basically like a culture set up of like all the kids are quote unquote perfect because they're all clones, they're cloning them. It would be so much more interesting to start off from scratch with a school that is not like a perfect school and to implement that program. So,
or just call it the imperfect school, make it the opposite.
What are you doing, Safi?
But anyway, so that's our review. And, the
book was so bad that we ended up writing another book.
Yeah.
Because it was so bad.
We're reviewing Dark Winds too. And I'll bring this up because I can't wait to see what happens in the show.
That show sucks too.
And I read, it's based on 2 books, I'll just say this. And one of them is called The Sinister Pig. And Tony Hillerman, that was his third to the last book, and then he was in his late 70s, and he was sick. And so in The Sinister Pig, there's some goofy stuff. I'm not going to say what it is, because I want to see what happens with the show. But anyway, I think he has kind of an excuse in a little way, because he's not feeling well. He's sick. And I know I don't even know if his wife was alive when he was finishing these books. His daughter was, and they may have helped him edit it, but I don't think they wanted to mess around with it too much, and he probably didn't want them to either. And it's pretty good, but there's some personal stuff I didn't care for. But anyway, so at least he has an excuse. But I read all the time. And so if you read enough stuff, no matter what it is, you'll recognize a bad book right away. You'll recognize the problems. You won't even have to think about it too much. And, Marco brought up the stuff about video games and all that I would never have, thought of.
That was probably one of the only, ideas that I guess you could say is interesting, but it wasn't really interesting what he did with it or its execution or anything. So, but that's my assumption though. He might not have been thinking about video games at all when he wrote that. But
how can that be? Because that's what it's all about.
No, when he made the choice to switch characters, he might not have been thinking about, this is like in video games when you can switch characters. He might have just been thinking, let's do this. Who knows what he was thinking.
I know. And so anyway, So we're not just sitting here wanting to criticize, wanting it to be bad, and finding everything wrong with it that we can't. We just know better.
Admittedly, it does make for much more entertaining reviews when the books are bad. But
Yeah, but I want to read something that's good.
Yeah.
Marco and I could barely read it.
Because it's a long time, the reading a book like this, it's a lot longer than watching a movie.
It's over 2 hours.
Yeah.
And
so,
admittedly, the books that I usually read are over 6 hours. But still, it's still over 2 hours of your personal time. And it's very irritating for it to be bad. And I just think about all those years ago when those Goosebumps books came out, how excited. It was just like when the Harry Potter books came out. I remember going down the street to the bookstore at midnight, and we were picking up a book. The next book she had put out, J.K. Rowling. And these Goosebumps, they had a Goosebumps club. So a new Goosebumps book comes out, we would run down there, and they had a party, and food, and games. And I mean, it was just...
What kind of food?
Just little, I don't know, snacks.
What kind of snacks?
I don't know. It was a long time ago.
Why not?
But anyway...
I want to know the Goosebumps Club.
People were excited about the books.
I'm going to start a Goosebumps Club right now.
Because
no girls allowed.
Okay, be quiet. Anyway, people are excited about these books. They just couldn't wait to read the next one. They even have... Don't they have in that movie with about fashion, where the woman wants her
Miss Congeniality?
Anne Hathaway to get her
Nobody likes that.
That originals to that latest Harry Potter book for her daughter or something. It was just... But see, that's what I'm saying. People are so excited about these books. And this kind of book, you're not going to be excited about reading that. Sorry, but it's true. Anyway, that's it. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become one of our 700 subscribers. So we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.